This is the key for negative numbers in the number line. Your assignment, lesson 2.1 on negative numbers. The first part, 1 through 11, and then the second part continuing on. So I'll go over all numbers, starting with 1 all the way through 36 here. So you're supposed to write a positive or negative number to represent each situation. So if you have a loss of $180, that would be the negative $180. If you're 3 floors below the ground level, below is the keyword to put the negative 3. 200 feet below sea level, so that's the negative 200 feet because it's below. If you withdraw money from the bank, you're taking money out. So if you withdraw $2,500 from the bank, you would have a negative $2,500 from the bank. If you deposit money into the bank, like you put this money into the bank, then you're going to gain it. So it's a positive $5,200. The dollar sign's written in front, even though we say it behind, and you don't really have to write the positive sign. A drop in temperature of 4 degrees is a negative 4 degrees because of the word drop. 16 degrees below zero, so it's a negative 16 degrees. I put degrees Celsius because that's what it was labeled here. Below is the keyword for negative. If 8 miles denotes 8 miles due north, and what denotes 5 miles due south, so north is going 8 being positive, so south would be going negative. So they want you to go 5 miles south, so you put negative 5 miles. If you're supposed to write the opposite of each number, the opposite of 6 would be negative 6. The opposite of negative 75 would just be positive 75. Again, you don't have to write the positive sign. The opposite of negative 100 is just 100. Complete the number line by filling in the missing numbers. So you could see it's going negative 8, negative 7. This arrow would be negative 6. You could fill in negative 5. This arrow would be negative 4. Negative 3. This arrow would be negative 2. And then I think it helps to go ahead and fill in your negative 1 and your other numbers so that you can see the other arrow that's missing is 3. Continuing on, I'll turn the page so we can keep going with the answers. This next one, again, I think it's easier to fill in all the numbers and then figure out which ones the arrows are. So if this is negative 30 and this is negative 27, that means you would have negative 29 and negative 28 in here. So this arrow is negative 29. This one's negative 26, this one's negative 23, and this would be negative 20. You can see how I filled in every single line to help me figure out which ones the dots are on. This one here, negative 14, negative 12, so that'd be negative 10. It's going down by 2s. There's negative 8. This would be negative 6. This one would be 0, and this would be 6. Continuing on. This one here, you kind of had to look to see what numbers they gave you to figure out what are they doing here. So negative 2, this would be negative 3. Negative 1, this would be 0. And there's positive 1, 2. Here's 3, and then this one would be 6. This one says draw a horizontal number line to represent each set of numbers. And the numbers aren't in a particular order, but you had to have negative 5 on there. So there's a dot on negative 5. And then negative 4 has a dot. And then I've placed all the other numbers, but then the dot would go on negative 1 because that's one of the numbers they wanted. 0 has a dot on it, and then 3 and then 5 have a dot on it. So I made it horizontal going across. I started the number line in the negatives all the way to the positives. Again, this is a horizontal number line, so I had to get negative 8 on there with a dot. Negative 7 has to have a dot. Negative 5 has to have a dot. Negative 2, 0, and 3. Notice I didn't just put those random numbers on the number line. I still counted by ones on the number line. I just put the dots on the ones that needed it. You want your number line to be in intervals of the same. So these intervals go by ones. These ones went by ones. If you remember up top, this one up here went by 2. So the intervals are the same. Then you just place the dots on the numbers you need. The vertical number line, so you had to have numbers from 1 to negative 12. If you remember, if 1 is up here, that's 0, then all the negatives go all the way to negative 12. And you did 1 to negative 12, so 1 has a dot, 0 has a dot, negative 1. Each one of these numbers should have a dot all the way to negative 12, which has a dot. If you're doing odd numbers between negative 10 and 3, negative 10 would be at the bottom and working your way up to 3. So I still went by ones on the number line, but only the odd numbers need a dot. So negative 9 has a dot, negative 7 has a dot, negative 5, negative 3, negative 1, positive 1. And it's odd numbers between -10 and 3, so you're not going to include 3 because that's not in between it. That would be exactly 3. So in between it, you stop at 1. Continuing on, you can draw a number line to help you. You may not need this number line. You could just look to compare. -7 is going to be less than -5. -1 is greater than -2. -4 is less than 0. 3 is greater than a -6. -3 is less than -1. -6 is less than 1. So how would a number line help you? You could see if a number is further to the left, it's less than. If it's further to the right, then it's greater than that number. So that could help you if you were looking at these. Complete inequality again. This is a negative number, so it's less than 0. A positive number 4 is greater than a negative number. A positive number 6 is greater than a negative number 10. You have two negative numbers, but you would have to think -7, if you did it on a number line, would be further to the right than -9, so it's greater than -9. -9 is less than -3 because -9 would be further to the left. -12 is less than 1. Order the numbers in each set from least to greatest. So you have all these numbers. So the smallest number on here is -200. Then you'd have -110, -25, 0, 23, 48. Least to greatest, again, you start with your negative numbers, and then you're going to work your way all the way up to your positive numbers. Now you're doing the opposite, ordering them from greatest to least. So the greatest number is your positive 90, 55, 10, and then you get into your negatives, and then you get further into your negatives. That's the smallest number. So greatest to least. Again, here, greatest to least, you have your positive numbers, 108, all your positives, all the way into your negatives. The last example was saying who had fewer points. So they were given 50 at the beginning of the game. Jose lost 120. So if he has 50 and he loses 120, that puts him at -70. The first 50 he loses is going to get him back to 0, but then he would have to lose another 70 to get the total of 120. So he'd be at -70. If this person Ling starts at 50, and he loses 80 points, the first 50 gets him back to 0, and then there would be an additional 30 in order for him to lose the 80 to get to -30. So now you're looking at comparing these two numbers. -70 is less than -30, so Jose has fewer points than Ling.